You are. So this week we have one of my very bestie of friends, Sascha Martinou. Thanks for joining us, darling.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
And Sascha is a tantric practitioner. She's trained with the academy for years in all the ways. Yeah, we do immersions together with couples, with individuals. We live in Bali together. And yeah, for me, Sascha has been one of the pivotal points of my life of really understanding the sacred power of sisterhood. So we're going to explore that today because it's a big part of feminine embodiment is having really strong sisterhood around us. So, Sash, I'd love if you could just share your journey with sisterhood, what that's been. Yeah, to start
Yeah,
us off.
yeah, absolutely. It's like I feel like there's always so much I can share on that. But one of the biggest and most profound and just most beautiful things for me is to now be in connection where it's like these veils of comparison, these veils of competition, and like any masks are just like shed, and it's like I definitely bow to the medicine of tantra for creating that permission slip, right, to show up in greater authenticity. But it's like I remember dreaming of friendships that I have, especially
Mm,
babe. It's like having
mm,
kind of so many different relationships as well. It's like working relationships, close friends, living together, doing immersions together. It's like there's also kind of a complexity to what we share, I think, and in that it's like so much gets to be revealed, but just with so much fucking safety, and
mm,
it's like I feel like I can share anything with you. And even when I'm frustrated with you, or even when something's like triggering me about you, I'm like, babe, like this is what's up right now. And then we're like, oh, fair enough. And, and then we get to come back to love so easily and so beautifully. And I think that's really grounded in the safety that we've
mm,
cultivated together, and that's been a journey, of course. But yeah, it's like, prior to Tantra, there was also this just like not knowing of self, actually, and also maybe like a fear to show up fully as myself and who I surrounded myself with. And yeah, that was really challenging. It's like I'm a deep woman, where we're deep women, and there's so much sharing that's available in these spaces. And yeah, the vulnerability that's been crafted in that has been such a blessing, such a blessing.
mm.
And yeah, I love doing life with you, babe.
It's so nice. It's so special. I'm now at a point in my life where I look around and be like, wow, I have got
Mm,
solid sisters in my life, like more than ever before. And
mm,
the same with the brotherhood as well.
mm, mhm,
Um, and I never really have had that in my life. It was really when I came to Tantra and met Raven that I started to experience for the first time what true sisterhood is.
mm.
And actually when I started on the journey of Tantra, I would say 98% of my friendships fell away. I
Same,
just started
absolutely.
to see the difference between how we were all relating together as friends,
Mhm,
and then how back then when I was a marine ecologist, how my friendship circle within that group were relating. And I just realized that all we did as women together was
mm,
bitch about other women and other people and complain. And I'm like, do we not have anything else to talk about? That's what I realized is we didn't have anything else to talk about because they weren't able to get to the depths of like vulnerability and
mm.
intimacy
Yes.
that as sisters between you and I and between our other sisterhood that we go to.
Mhm,
So yeah, I think there's a few points that I want to kind of speak into and get your perspective on.
Mm,
And I think the first is just to take a step back and go, we live very unnaturally in the world right now. You know, like
mm,
you either live alone or you live with your partner in your four walls, and then you go to work, and then you come home, and then you might socialize on the weekend.
mm,
And we're
mm,
not meant to live so isolated.
mm,
We're tribe, hive, you know, beings as Homo sapiens, and we need
mm,
community.
mm, mhm,
Community is where it's at, and so sisterhood for me is a massive, massive part of community.
mm,
And yeah, I used to be such a relationship caver, and
mm,
now that I've lived in group, like in tantra houses in community, and we've lived together for a few years as well, in group share houses,
mm,
and it's just a family. It's a
mm,
family unit, and then even being in relationship with the beloved, I still want to live in that community vibe because it's so
mm,
rich. It's so,
mm.
so rich. So I think having that means that I wake up in the morning and I hear you singing or Jenny chanting, you know,
Mm,
like, good morning. And then we get to hug each other and, you know, tell each other about our dreams. And it's just
mm,
what a beautiful way to wake up and a beautiful way to spend
mm.
time together. So, yeah, I'd love to hear from you what your experience has been living alone, living outside of community pre-tantra, and what
Mm.
it's for you now, the difference.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I think just to add on to your sharing, it's like, yes, we're waking up in the morning and it's like kazaa and it's beautiful and there's connection there and there's love there. And also it's like those mornings where, and I'll speak from my experience where I wake up and it's like for
Yeah,
whatever reason. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
everything feels a bit too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like when living in community and living with sisters, especially, and of course living with you, babe, it's like actually, yeah, it's showing up in that. And then it's like, yeah, when there's a part of me that wants to not do my practice or not feel, or it's all just all very
Mhm.
dramatic, you know. And then it's like I have a sister being like, oh, babe, what's up? I can hold you in that, or I can hold space for that, or you know, it's like we've got this, you know. And it's that
Mhm.
just that's like loving support and presence, you know. And yes, of course, we can give that to ourselves, right? Of course, we can give that to ourselves. But it's just so much better when it's from sisters, when you need it, right? And that's when I think community and the brotherhood as well, of course, comes into that. And yeah, I feel like if I'm just to answer that question on how my experience has been living alone or not living in community, and or not, I guess, having the depth of relationships, platonic relationships that I have now, you know, it's like, God, it was isolating, right?
Mm.
And yeah, it definitely created, and it was still a choice that I made, but it definitely created the space for me to just go into what I knew wasn't healthy for me, whether that's a pattern, a behavior, an addiction, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, like, you know, I could get away with it if I was in my own company. But then living with people that are like just, you know, like living with you, babe, just calling me on my shit. And it's like, thank you. Like,
Mhm.
thank you, you know? And yeah, it's been so beautiful. And there's been challenge in that, of course, you know, because there's been these
Mm.
parts and these fragments of self that are like, I don't want to die, but oh, it's time, it's time,
I don't
it's
want to
time.
change.
I don't want to change. Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, it's like, you know, and like what I'll share as well, it's like I'm so, so grateful for yeah, the way you continuously show up for me, babe, and call me into my power and just, yeah, who you are. As a sister, you know, it's like it's just fucking life changing. And what my prayer is to like just make that accessible to as many like women as possible,
Mhm.
and to know that safety can be found in sisterhood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember when we first started to like our friendship really deepened. It's how
Mm,
I actually learnt that it was safe to speak up and be myself, and that I wasn't going to lose love. And
Mm,
it's always been my biggest fear in relationships historically
mm,
and just generally, right? That clamp around the throat that goes, it's not safe for me to speak up because I'll lose love. And what I notice with you and within our sisterhood circle as well, it's like because we place such an emphasis on the inner work and
mm,
then we get to practice it with each other, it's a really safe space to explore parts of ourselves that sometimes can be a bit too much of an edge to go like fully experience in relationships. So it's part of the support for me to be able to show up in my romantic relationships so fully,
mm.
is because I've been able to do that with you. If something feels out of alignment or if we're grumpy with each other, we'll just say it. And it's like, oh my God. And then I don't remember what it was about, but the first time it happened, we're both like, oh, we love each other more now. And that's how it works if you've got two people who are willing to get vulnerable, take responsibility, and evolve.
Mm,
So sisterhood is for me, it's this incredible support network where it's another level of safety that I'm creating for myself, is having really good quality sisters that have my heart and that have my back. And in doing so, I can experience, everything that we experience in the outer world with romantic relationships or business partner, which is the vulnerability and the speaking up, but
mm.
in a beautiful, safe, squishy love bubble of sisterhood.
It's exactly that, babe. I love that. Absolutely.
And, it's like, I feel like there's multiple layers of how to love ourselves. And one is absolutely it needs to come from the inside, and we love ourselves that way. And then there's like love from spirit and tapping into that. And then there's the everyday life. And I think we can put so much emphasis as women on our romantic relationship to provide, that very human need for validation, love, safety, that just feels so yummy. And
Mm,
that's where I went wrong for years. Went wrong, unconscious, whatever you want to call it.
mm, mm,
Every relationship I was in, I disconnected from my friends and would make them the center of my life. And then
mm,
I'd leave the relationship, or the relationship would end, and I'd be like, where's my life? Where's my friends? And I
mm,
started when I started with Tantra to get that reflection from my sisters saying, we never see you. You're just always hanging out with your husband. Right?
mm,
And so sisterhood is what's actually enabled me to show up in my relationship without the previous clingingness,
mm,
because I'm not putting all of my very human needs for connection and love and safety on them. I'm giving it to myself, and I'm getting it from a super rich life.
mm,
And having sisters is just fun.
mm, mhm.
Fun.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's beautiful to hear you share, babe, and I agree completely. It's like definitely the importance of, yeah, just having a life, even in relationship, and that of course includes sisters, that of course includes different conversations and showing different aspects of self.
Yeah, and I think it's like we go back to being children as well, is what I notice.
Mm,
Sisters, uh, there's a playfulness, and there's also like innocence.
yeah.
And so I want to speak a bit into the power of sisterhood and its role in like reclaiming our sensuality as well.
Hmm.
Because if you think back to being children, when we first started to realize that we have like boobies and vaginas and all the things, you kind of go to your friends and you kind of like, look, here's what my boobs look like. We still do that with each other every day. Boobies. And yeah, like I'd love to hear your journey of sisterhood and the beautiful central zone that sisterhood can come into, that's so nurturing.
Yeah, beautiful. I think, yeah, there's so much that I can share in this. I think where I want to start is this differentiation between sensuality and sexuality. And, of course, sensuality, when we're engaging with our senses, right? Senses, that pleasure can arise and that can be beautiful and there can be a dance with that. But also just like the sensation of just touching each other with love and hugging each other with love, or like giving each other little scratches, or, oh babe, what do you really want to receive right now? Or sometimes it's like, hey, actually, I can't do touch right now. And it's like, great, babe, thanks for honoring yourself. And I love that you spoke into that innocence. It's like, that's what was really coming up for me as well. It's like just this safety to play, and be in this joy, and it's like, my little girl is definitely inspired by your little girl, and that's been a beautiful journey for me as well. And of course, other beautiful sisters and friends in my life that also inspire these different aspects of me. And I feel like, again, the medicine of Tantra just being like, if I was to condense it to like, a few words, is permission slip, right? Just be all of me, when I'm sad, when I'm joy, when I'm in my pleasure, when I want to be held, when I want to hold, right? When I'm, my little girl, whatever it is. But yeah, I think like a big part of, again, if I'm coming back to this reclamation of pleasure and of sensuality, it's a space where, a big part of reclaiming my body as well, has been in the safety of sisterhood. And for those that don't know my journey, I almost lost my life to anorexia and depression and spent years in and out of hospital, right? And then gaining weight was like, oh my God, such a death to that part of myself. The compliments that I get from people that I trust, it's like trust as well coming into this like relational dynamic that we share, right? Of being like, oh, I trust your words, right? And it's like, just again, it's like retraining certain neurological pathways that have once were so strongly entrenched, right? And it's like, oh, days I might get up. It's like also what I'll share of gaining weight was like the biggest challenge for me, because it was a complete death of that part of myself. But in that, of like, like finally coming into my body, finally coming into this sense of erotic aliveness, because I was feeling, right? And then sharing that with sisters, sharing that in the safety where it's like, oh my God, I've always been a sensual being, right? And like once upon a time, women would shame me for that, and it's like, oh, can I express that? It's like, oh, is something going to happen? But it's just so encouraged between us and in the tantric field, it's like, again, that permission piece is just like, so like, yeah, so profound, so poignant, so powerful for me, because I just could take off like all these shackles of fear or of judgment that I was holding around for myself, and could just show up in this space that was like celebration, yes, empowerment, yes, like, and feeding that and giving that to each other has been one of the greatest gifts, so, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I think it's something we all do very well, is compliment each other.
Mm-hmm.
Love compliments. And
Mm.
so, in our community, I love how we're always just it's not even lifting each other up. It's just observing beauty in
Exactly. Love them.
all of its like expressions, all of
Mm-hmm.
its expressions. And I loved when our girlfriend Jenny came into our life, who now works with the academy as well. She's just like, I've never been as complimented as I have while living with the two of you, and it's important to have that around you, because sometimes we can't do that for ourselves,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's okay. So,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, we have people around us who we trust.
Mm.
So when I'm receiving compliments from you, if I can't see it in myself in that moment, I'm like, I know that Sascha doesn't speak bullshit for the
Mm,
sake of making me feel better. She speaks truth, because that's the big thread in our sisterhood, is the dedication to truth.
mm,
So it's just this, yeah, this beautiful support that, if we let ourselves open to that vulnerability. And I think that's been the other big thing in the sisterhood. What I notice is there can be a lot of competition, a lot of comparison, a lot of bitchiness. And
mm,
so, and a lot of women clients that I work with as well, it's like, they've had some experience, and so they don't trust their sisters. I'm like, oh, that's devastating. I don't know what I'd do without my
mm,
sister.
mm,
And there's
mhm,
usually some point of betrayal from the feminine, which has caused that wounding. So we're also really deeply healing that wounding through each other, and just like you said, that permission slip to show up as ourselves. And
mm, mm,
it was, I don't know, maybe a year ago, when I'd ended a relationship. I got
mm,
him, you're like, come to me, babe. So I came to your house, and I got to the front steps. I was like on my scooter, so I had to keep myself together. And I got to the front steps, and I just crumbled. It was
mm,
in a complete like freeze response. And then you came out and put your hand on my back and held me. And then I could move the emotion through my body and start releasing. And then
mm,
I think it was 2 weeks later, you injured yourself, and the roles were reversed on the
mm,
same step. And you were in a freeze response, and I came out and held you. And it's,
mm,
like, it just heals so much of that part of ourselves that, like, oh, are we taking up your time? Are we a burden?
mm,
Loved so fully by each other, and we all do the same in our community as well. And I now am living in a house with two other women, and Sascha, you're like just across the road now. And it's the same thing every day. There's conversations that are like supporting,
mm,
inspiring,
mm,
expanding, um,
mm,
in so many ways. Yeah, so one other thing I want to speak into is the element of sensuality.
mhm,
How you differentiated the two. And I think it's, and I want to speak a bit into how to create a sisterhood as well.
mm,
First of all, it's like, I've, we need touch. Humans need a lot of touch. Babies die if they don't receive touch.
mhm,
Again, this segregation of communities and families into their four walls in their little house, it's it's like we miss out on so much touch.
mm,
A big part of that in sisterhood is, and anyone who comes new into our sisterhood, I have to be like, is this touch okay? Because we're
mhm,
always cuddling each other or holding each other's hands or stroking each other. And in
mm,
the beginning, I was like, this was a bit much. Like, like, there's so much affection. And
mm,
so I said that with various friends. And now it's like, mostly I can't get enough. Cuddles are
mm,
beautiful, essential dances are beautiful.
mm,
And so it's just this massive oxytocin overflow all the time, where and I've even noticed that some of our other girlfriends now reach out and be like, can you hold me right now? Can I have a cuddle? Or if we go to
mm,
static dance, we'll dance sensually together, because it's this safe space to explore pleasure and to explore sensual energy moving through our bodies that doesn't lead to anything, and doesn't it's not a strong sexual charge. It's just sensual erotic energy flowing through us,
mm.
like that innocence of the child.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like what was coming through, it's like, yes, we've talked a lot about safety. And it's also, it's like, okay, how is that safety created? Like, how is it really created? Because we do share so much safety together. And there's already points that we've talked into, but I was feeling into yes as trust, yes as vulnerability. Like, you know, for example, it's like I could feel the other day, I was just feeling like a little bit of a bitch towards you. And I just named it. I was like, babe, I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm feeling like a bit of a bitch right now. It's just, I'll take some space and I'll come back. Right.
Mm,
Like, I feel like, and every time where that's reversed or where you're expressing something to me that's come up or triggered you, it's like, yeah, it may be edgy. Like, you know, we have lots of conversations that are like, oh God, like, oh, okay, you know, and I'm so grateful for that, because each time we do, it's like I get to trust you more because I get to feel you
mm,
more. And actually, I'm just trusting myself more because
mm,
I'm just speaking truth. Right. So it's like, in terms of engaging sensually on the dance floor, it's like we have this space where safety has been built. Yes. Trust has been built. Yes. Vulnerability has been built. Yes.
mm,
And yeah, now we get to play in this space that it's just like, you know, it just feels like a longer exhale in my body. It just feels like greater ease in my body. And yeah, it's so beautiful. There's such a fluidity to that, you know, and I love feeling that. And it's like, yeah, we know each other's boundaries, but also it's just like so fun to play. And I think
mm,
part of that as
mm,
well is like taking the shame out of what it means to show up in your sensuality. And again, like, sensuality for me is just aliveness. You know, it's like I'm connected to the world around me. I'm connected to my taste, my touch, my senses, right?
mm,
And it's like, it's just letting aliveness vibrate through me in each and every moment, you know? And of course, that's going to be more easeful when there's all of those beautiful qualities that I talked into cultivated in a relationship. Um, and you know, also for me, it's like when I feel into sensuality, I'm like, that's actually just a way of life. You know,
mm,
this is a way of life. Tantra is a way of life. It's not just a tradition of teachings and practices that we learn. Yes, it is that, but it also is just like how to show up in your fullness, in full permission to be all of you in
mm.
each and every moment. And yeah.
Oh, and I love how you said like sensuality, it's just aliveness. And
Mm,
like, how can you not be excited and in love and wanting to feast on life when you're truly alive, not just in the thinking mind,
mm,
going about your day and just in awe of this incredible world and incredible life. And I
mhm,
think from that space, that's when we start to do magic, and that's when we start to
mm,
engage the power of magic.
mm,
And that's been such a big part of, for me, of sisterhood, is having my witchy girlfriends
mhm,
energy and do magic together. And part of that is very much, you know, on the dance floor. I mean, there's a lot of dance here in Bali, so that's why we're referring to that. Any country we're in. And yeah, it really is just working with energetics, you know, and women tend to be very energetic beings as well, as we all are, but I would say women kind of more naturally.
mm,
Um, that we just get to dance, and that for me is sensuality as well. It's a very energetic space to weave through, and I share that with sisters and I share that with brothers. And
mm, mm,
you know, it's such a clean field within our community.
mm,
Everyone knows each other's boundaries, and it's just a beautiful friendship of sharing such sensual energy.
mm.
And that's it. You have a beautiful sensual dance, and then you're like, thank you. And then you might go have a dance with someone else, you know.
Totally,
I remember the
totally.
first time I did contact dance, I'm like, you're not going to ask me for my number? Amazing. We just got a sexy dance together.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's like also bringing in that mysticism piece of, you know, especially, yeah, for us, like pleasure acting as a portal to connect to divinity as well, right? And the magic and what we share in connecting to spirit and yeah, whatever realms we're kind of accessing and whatever journeys we're going on in that. But you know, it's like definitely a part of your mystic. Again, it's like this piece of also inspiration and sisterhood. You know,
Mm,
it's like
mm,
I get inspired by your mystic, you know, and your beautiful devotion and bhakti and everything you bring, right? And that's definitely inspired a part of me. And I feel, you know, the same in whatever way. But yeah, and also Yeah, it's like, again, that aliveness thread of actually when we're just like sexual energy, oh my God, it's a force of creation. That's why you and me are sitting here having this live right now, you know? And
Mm,
and yes, there's a lot of conditioning and blah 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 experiences, whatever the fuck's going on, right? But also it's like we just get to rewrite the script on that now, right? And I feel like what we're also sharing, and we've had that reflection of it's inspired other people in the community, and it's just like, what is it? It's just love, like in its simplicity.
mm,
Like it's just like
absolutely.
leading from love.
Yeah, I love that. And when I've spoken to my male friends about it as well, they said the same thing. It's just the energy of love
Mm,
coming through a plutonic, um, sensual, alive connection, which is so beautiful and so nourishing. And I think that every human on this planet, consciously or unconsciously, craves that depth of intimacy,
mm,
not just from one person, not just from a beloved, but actually from a community.
mm,
And for the first time in my life, in a real way, I feel like I have solid community of amazing women and amazing friends in my life, in our lives. That's my soul family.
mm,
That's really where sisterhood and brotherhood end up at, is it's like, yeah, we reincarnate and we have our chosen blood family,
mm,
and that comes with its amazingness and it comes with its challenges and trauma,
mm,
for some. But we actually get to create a soul family together. Like,
mm.
how many times in a week do we say, "You got me for life, babe"? Like, we're doing life together. You
Oh my
know?
God. Yeah.
And I know it and I believe it, and
Yes.
it's just a
Yeah.
given. It's just a knowledge.
It's just annoying. It absolutely is. And yeah, it's just such a gift. It's just such a gift. And I think a part of that is like this, like, again, coming back to Tantra, just this re-education, like just this re-education, it's like I was
Yeah.
never modeled friendships like that I have now, and yeah, the deconditioning process in that, of course, but it's just like this re-education, like,
Mm.
and I think there's a beauty in that as well, a real beauty in that.
Mm.
Mm,
Absolutely. And communities are where it's at, and communities are how I see it, the way of the future. With
mhm, mhm,
changes in the world, it's like we're just not meant to be living in our individual houses
mm,
doing things so alone. It's not fair to ourselves and it's not fair to the planet, and more of this community style living where we have our sisters and we have our brothers,
mm,
and life becomes so much richer.
mhm,
There's all of this dynamic energy that moves naturally between us all every time we come together and gather, or every time we have dinner together, or interact with each other. That's just energy moving through communities that creates more resilience, actually, is what I feel for
mm,
each of us when
mm,
we have community, because we're pack animals.
mhm,
I know that I feel safe knowing the community that I have, the friendships that I have that are like lifelong.
mhm,
Family.
mhm,
We're family.
mhm, 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 mhm,
And that family just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as more women and men, come into each of our fields. So
mm,
I think it's a beautiful, it's such a necessary part of what it is to be a woman, is
mm,
to have sisterhood and also to have good brothers and to create that
mm.
self.
Yeah,
And go ahead.
there was just one thing I was going to mention in that, it's like also just feeling perhaps the people that may watch this live, and it's like I think there's also this part of receivership actually, and like the ability to receive, and
Mm,
how that
mm,
can also create who is around you and what you're calling in. Like I remember, I actually think it was on a private immersion I experienced with Raven, and yeah, and I think, and our gorgeous friend Matilda as well came for one of the last closing ceremonies, and there was just this moment, like this moment where it's like I actually opened up to what it means to receive love, you know,
Mm,
like one of the first times, if not like the first time in my life, and it was like, so you know, I
mm,
think also talking about this community and this beauty of relating together and in sisterhood, but I think there's also a huge piece around our relationship to receptivity, right? The
mm,
receptivity of the heart, of the body, of the sexuality, of the consciousness, you know. And I think like even getting like, you know, I think I was sick like a few months ago, and a beautiful friend, Scott, was like, "Oh, did you need anything, babe, or need me to drop anything around?" And I just felt like, oh, like, and you know,
mm,
messages from you and other people as well in that time, of course. But I just like, even from a brother, you know, I've just been like, "Oh yeah, babe," like, you know, whatever it was, or but just being open to actually receiving that, you know, I think is also a piece to
mm.
mention here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like any relationship that forms, right? It can take time and it can take trust to fully open to receiving.
Mm,
And that goes in any relationship that we have. But there's
absolutely.
just such unique jewels of that sisterhood hood energy, which is, you know, tribes, that's what they do. The women gather together and the men gather together.
Mm,
So it's such kind of a missing piece, I think, in the wider global society that so many people miss out on and desperately want.
mm,
You know, to clients that I work with when they're like, how do I get good friends? How do I create that for myself?
mm,
And
mm.
I had to ask myself, well, how did I create that for myself?
Mhm, mhm,
I just started to follow joy and go to the events that lit me up and put myself out there, you know? And so that's how I started to meet like-minded people through
mm,
tantra events, through ecstatic dance, through group gatherings. And you know, I'm a Cancerian and I have a lot of Cancer in my chart, so I'm very good at caving. I'm very, very good at going into my crab shell and being like, "It's safe here. I'm fine. I won't go out tonight." And I had to really push beyond that to go, no, it's worth it to me. It's really important to me to call
mhm,
in good friends. And so
mm,
I think the first thing is really like setting an intention.
mm,
This is what I want for myself. It's like when you're manifesting a partner. It's like I want a really good sisterhood and brotherhood circle in my life. And
mm,
actually, about a year ago, I did do this intentionalization of brotherhood because
mm,
I'm like, no, I want some solid men in my life rather than just my partner being the only man in my life who I'm really close to. And now it's like, I feel like I've got an army of amazing men in my life who were there. And so what I did to create that is again just do the things that are fun, go to social events, get outside your comfort zone and go do things that are fun. Whether, like, for me, it was African dance, and I did some salsa classes, I did some djembe workshops, drumming workshops. And then in Bali, it's just like, take your pick. There's so
yes.
much community. And I know in some places it's harder, but seek it out. You know, go on Facebook
Mm,
groups, find where there are conscious events that you can meet like-minded people. And
mm,
so the intention would be the first one. The second one would suggestion would be to go out and mingle. And then the third one I learned from my girlfriend Orica, who, have you met Orica?
not yet, not yet. Mexico,
Oh,
baby. Yeah.
yeah, wow. And when I met her, she messaged me the next day saying, "Hey, I'd love to go for a breakfast date. When are you free?" And then we became really good friends. And then I observed her doing that and just having all these new friends in her life and amazing, amazing women
Mm,
because she'd asked them out on a date,
mm, mhm,
you
mhm,
know? And I just thought, there's something in that we do
mhm,
that when it comes to romantic relationships, but we don't do that when it comes to platonic relationships, or I didn't. And that
mhm.
actually, when you meet someone who you find interesting, you can just say, "Hey, I love your WhatsApp. Maybe we catch up sometime."
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And I think also like asking with like no expectation or attachment. Like, oh, that was a great time. Like, it's like this is just feels inspiring, my truth right now, and I just want to share it with you, and it's like, yeah, there's a part in that. And I also think, as you're going out or you're trying these new events, it's like, yeah, meeting your edge, and of course, in my experience, when I have done that, especially when my world was kind of new to any like spirituality or whatever you kind of want to call it, like there was always this edge of like, oh, wow, okay, this is, yeah, a bit confronting, but it's also building upon my own confidence and my own like relationship to my worth. And that's a beautiful journey of cultivating deeper relationships with people. It's like, okay, it's like also like bringing it back here, and also knowing that in that you do get to just feel more confident and more alive. You do get to, push past something, meet your edge. Yes, get the dopamine. Yes, get the serotonin. Yes, the oxytocin, right? And do things that, yeah, feel inspiring.
Yeah, and if you think about how we were as kids in a playground, I would
Mm.
have seen you in a playground being like, she looks like fun. And then I might have come up to you and be like, you want to play on that piece of equipment? And be like, yeah. And if it was no, then it's like, okay,
Yeah,
you know?
the next person. Yeah,
And,
absolutely. I love that.
it's doing that. It's like if you're in the community and you
Mm,
see someone who's interesting, then you can go up to her and say, and just go, hey, how you going? How's your day?
mm.
You know? What's you
Absolutely.
about? What's your life about? Or what are you doing here? Or how are you connected? So it's like
Mm.
asking questions as well.
Mhm, mhm,
Someone new is beautiful.
mhm,
Really, what that takes is to be with and hold the fear of rejection.
mhm,
That's
mhm,
what we're
mhm,
all afraid of at the end of the day. It's the only reason why we don't go and instigate
mm, mm,
and be with a girlfriend or with a romantic someone you're romantically interested in is because of the fear of rejection. So what if we could one hold that fear of rejection, and just love it and be like, okay, it's here, but I'm going to do it anyway.
mm,
We could bring like that innocence of the child who just goes, they look fun or interesting. I want to know who you are. I'll often say that to people. I'm like, who are you? You look interesting. And people love it.
yeah.
Curious. It's like, what are you about? So
Especially
interesting,
in the Buddha, of course, there's so many amazing characters.
especially in a Buddha.
Mm,
Especially in a Buddha.
yeah.
Yeah. So just giving
Mhm,
for the
mhm,
sacred power of sisterhood that we've
mhm,
created in our lives and continue to create. And
mhm,
yeah, really sending out a prayer to all the women out there. You don't need to do it alone. You don't need to get
mm,
any hero's badge by, being completely self-resourcing.
mm,
I do believe that evolution is going back to that childlike, playful innocence that we all had when we were children.
mm,
So tap into that and intentionalize and cool in some amazing women in your life.
mm.
One thing that I love to do is to bring my favorite women together,
Mhm, mhm,
and then they become friends, and then they start planning things that I get invited to. So it's just a very organic way of creating community that's very natural, and I
mhm.
think very needed and so important and beautiful.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, that like that prayer also of permission, of like that part that's like, yeah, you don't have to do it alone anymore. Of course you don't. And also it's like you just get to be who you are. And to
Yeah.
know like that is what is most beautiful. That is always what is most attractive to me, when I can just feel someone not wearing a mask or not having this focus on the external, right? And it's also fair enough to have some awareness and attention there. I know I definitely do myself, and I can watch that and I can drop into presence with that and just say, okay, what's actually here? And can I express that? Like the beauty and the innocence of like, who are you? You look interesting, right?
Mm,
Like I think
mm,
that is as well what I want to say, is we kind of more bring this to a close of like, you just get to give yourself the permission to be who you are and to know that, oh my God, that is the most lovable thing. And that is why I connect so deeply with you. It's because we just show up who we are, you know. There's such power in that, you know, there's such beauty in that, and in all of the like the different flavors of what that could be.
Yeah, and one last thing I'll say, thanks for that,
Mm,
is if you're not experiencing this in your current friendships with women,
mm,
then that can be part of the process. And as I said, around 98% of my friends changed. You
mm,
know, when I really got into embodiment and Tantra. And it's like, it's the same with romantic relationships. You know, you got to test love.
mm,
You got to test love, and we've had to meet that edge a couple of times together. Of it's like, oh my God, if I say this, am I going to lose, my best friend? If your girlfriend can't hold you, shames, blames, projects, then is she really someone you want in your life? Because there's plenty more
mm,
women in the sea
absolutely.
with. And what I find in all relationships, but in the sisterhood, is actually when we can show up as authentically ourselves, as you've been talking so beautifully into,
Mm,
and we're loved in that, even though there may be unconscious parts, there may be shadow parts, there may
mm, mm,
be annoying parts. It's like, and I love you anyway.
mm,
Always get there in the end because we're ever evolving beings. And if you're in friendship with women who aren't evolving and that is your path, I can tell you now it's going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging because that's, in my experience, when relationships kind of die, is when two beings have stopped evolving together in
mm,
some way. And then life's like, well, that's not fun. That's not going anywhere.
mm,
To losing friends. Be open to letting go of friends, I'd say.
mhm.
Open to making new friends who are more in alignment with you. And like, you're one of the funnest people I get to spend time with. Like, if you're there, I'm having a great time. Our little girls get along and our teenagers have a great old time.
Oh my God, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
Yes.
for me, that really helps balance my feminine as well, because
Mm,
I do work a lot. And then when you come along and the sisterhood comes along, that polarizes me and my feminine as well, which, yeah, is a key part of being a woman. And I think it's a really important part to emphasize, that when you're around women, naturally that feminine essence is shared, expands, weaves, dances with each other. And, you end up the giggling girls where everyone's like, oh, the girls. And
yeah.
beautiful medicine when we can
Mm,
live in a very, focused, more structured, doing kind of life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, babe. Perfect.
So I'm very grateful for you, because you're actually, yeah, when we really deeply connected a few years ago, that's when I was like, wow, like women are so.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. I remember that weekend just being such a, actually, yeah, quite a pivotal, life-changing moment for me, you know, and where I was at life. It was just this like, it just felt
Mm,
also this like this freedom, you know,
mm,
this
mm,
freedom and this like, just this saying yes to life, this receivership to life, you know, and it was beautiful speaking into, you know, when sort of Shaktis come together and there's that dance in feminine energy, and you know that part of you that works a lot and does a lot. But what I'll also say is like, you know, the part of me that just wants to be Venus and lay naked and be fed fruit all day, it's like the part of me that actually needs to, you know, like get my shit together, get into work. I'm like, oh, thanks, babe, this is great, you know. So it's like, also I think, yeah, that part of like, oh, recognizing that we all have different medicine for each other, recognizing that we all hold different skill sets that we can
mm,
learn from each other, but also still creating a space of equanimity, right? Where actually no one's holding this like level of power recognizing that, yeah, you're just better at some stuff than I am, and vice versa. But
Mm,
it's equanimity, and I think in that equanimity, there's also a deep sense of safety, and I feel like that's definitely been the biggest theme of
mm.
all. Mm.
Yeah, sisterhood is medicine. There's so much medicine in sisterhood, so much medicine. Safety, vulnerability, love, play,
Mm.
fun, creativity,
Mm.
support. It's
Mm.
just truth telling. Yeah,
It's where it's at. It's where it's at, everyone.
where it's at. Thank you, darling. This was
Mm. Yeah.
and Blair, you have so much wisdom. So I'm definitely wanting to bring you back on to share
Mm.
some more.
Oh, an honor and a pleasure, sweetheart. An honor and a pleasure.
Well, love you all. Thanks for listening,
Mm.
everyone.
Yeah.
And if you have good sisters in your life, thank them,
Mm.
love them up even more. What you give always comes back. And if you're really desiring sisterhood in your life, intentionalize, follow your joy, follow your pleasure,
Mm.
go to the events that are in resonance with that, and see who you meet and make an invitation.
Mm. Amen, girl. Oh,
Amen.
thank
And
you.
we'll see you next week for the live. Raven will be back, so we'll be back on then.
Mm.
And thank you, Sashi.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. It was such a pleasure to be here. Mm.
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 See
Until
you all next week.